Want to know if you're being manipulated by someone? Well, watch the rest of this video because I'm going to give you 4 signs that you actually are being manipulated. Manipulation, it's something that we learn from a very, very young age. Now, anyone who has children, who has been around babies, will know that when baby wants something, what do? They cry. And believe it or not, this is a form of manipulation. Baby has learned that when baby cries, that someone is going to give them attention, someone is going to fulfill their needs. And it gets to a point that a parent even is so down with what baby's particular cries means that they will then know that, oh, this cry means nappy change, this cry means bottle feed, or they will know that at a certain point baby is crying, and because they haven't had this one thing, this is why they're crying for this one thing. So manipulation starts very, very early in human behavior, and a lot of times people will evolve this behavior as they get older and pick up new tips and tricks through experience in particular and add it to their arsenal of manipulation. And it comes in both forms of women and men who are being able to manipulate the other to get what they want or each other. People will usually trial and error techniques to see which ones give them the result that they're looking for and which ones don't. So if they know that by behaving a certain way, they're going to elicit an ego stroke or an emotional response or whatever it is to hurt you, and that's what they're looking for, then that's exactly what they're going to do the next time. Or maybe that's what they're going to do with another person. So it comes from a lot of experience, trial and error, and people can end up being master manipulators over the years. And it's these kind of people that we really need to kind of work out their strategy so we don't fall into the trap of their manipulation. So today I'm going to give you 4 signs that someone is manipulating you. Some may be obvious, some maybe not, but we're going to go through these 4 signs in detail. So let's begin. So the first sign that someone is manipulating you, and you may not even realize it, is something called minimizing and magnifying. Now, what do I mean by minimizing and magnifying? Well, let me put this into context. Now, this often happens when we have a confrontation with somebody, or they do something that we do not like. That person is then going to minimize what they've done. They're going to magnify something that you have done in the past or something that you do often, even though that may not be a big deal. And they do this so what they've done looks small in comparison to what you've done, so you look guilty and they don't. This shifting of blame and guilt is a definite manipulation technique. So say, for example, that you have an appointment with a friend and this person turns up late for their appointment with you, or maybe you were supposed to go to a movie and they turn up half an hour late, an hour late, and they've not told you where they are, or they've not told you why they're running late, or that they even are running late, and they turn up, and instead of like apologizing, they kind of turn it around on you and they're like, yeah, I know I'm late, but you know what, you were late. And they might bring something up from like 5 years ago, in 2000 and whatever, and you were late for 15 minutes, and they're gonna bring it up and they're gonna make it sound like it was the biggest deal ever that you were late that one time. And they might use this again and again in other examples, but this is like their favorite ammunition into making you feel like you are more guilty and you are making bigger mistakes than them, so you should kind of let them go for this one mistake. So instead of apologizing, that's what they're going to do. They're going to try and guilt trip you and make it look like that your mistakes are bigger than theirs. Now, it might not be that they bring something up from the past. It might just be something that they mention that you do on a regular basis, or you have done very recently, or that you have a trait that they want to pick on. So say, for example, they're running late and they turn up and you're like, oh my god, you're an hour late and you didn't even tell me, and the movie's gone and I bought the tickets and you missed the entire movie, and what was the point? And you're upset, and they're going to be like, hold on a minute, You are so much more forgetful than me. Remember last week you left the milk on the stove and you walked outside, and oh my god, the house would have burnt down if I hadn't come in and saved the day. And even if you'd forgotten about it for 2 seconds and it wasn't such a big deal, they're gonna make it into the world's biggest deal ever. And they're gonna do that because they want to make what you've done look so much worse, so what they've done doesn't look as bad. And I will often see this happen in times of conflict or in times of arguments, and it's definitely a very common manipulation technique that women and men both use on each other. And it's basically to kind of tell the other person and put them in their place and be like, look, don't pick on me, don't judge me, you do so much worse than me, and how dare you pick up on this one thing that I've done. So they want to make you look more guilty, and that's kind of their aim. And another person who's being, manipulated in this way, they're going to turn around and they're going to be like, oh my god, they're right, I better shut up because I did this and that was so terrible, and I hurt this person so much, so I can't really talk about this. However, it's important that you recognize what's going on. Anytime somebody brings up something in the past or a trait that you have when they have done something wrong, do not let them shift the focus onto you. It needs to remain on them. You need to say something along the lines of, do not shift the blame, what you did was wrong. And if they carry on talking about it, just walk away from the entire conversation and remove your attention, because they're only going to manipulate you if you're standing around and allowing it to happen. If they see that you're not feeling guilty, that you're not going to put up with this kind of diversion tactic, then they're going to stop doing it over time because they know it's not going to work on you. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, then please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Mind Council channel for more great videos like these. So, sign number 2 that somebody is manipulating you. They move the goalposts. Now, moving the goalpost is not about, sports or anything. It's just a term that is used when somebody put standards down that they expect from somebody or in life, and then they change these standards as and when it suits them. Now, this kind of manipulation is very apparent in all types of relationships, in friendships, in work relationships, in family relationships, in romantic relationships. It often involves a lot of hypocrisy and somebody manipulating you, so you will jump through hoops to please them or to change your behavior to accommodate them. And one rule will apply to them and another rule will apply to everybody else. And this is what moving the goalpost is. So let me give you more of an example. So, in any kind of a relationship, spending time together is important. And maybe they're going to say this. Maybe they're going to say something along the lines of, we don't spend enough time together. And spending time together is so important. If we want this relationship to work, we need to spend more time together. Whether that's a friendship or if that's a romantic relationship. And you agree to this and you're like, you know what? Yeah, spending more time together sounds great. And it's something that we should absolutely do. So, as time goes on, you notice that this person is not actually doing what they said they actually wanted, and they're not really spending a lot of time with you, and they're not prioritizing that. So maybe you bring it up in conversation and you're like, well, maybe we should go out this weekend, or, and maybe they turn around and say, well, I can't do that because I already made plans this weekend, and maybe they're just not making time available for you. So that upsets you, and then you say, well, you say that spending time together in a relationship is so important. And what they're gonna do now is they're gonna play a little bit of manipulation, and they're gonna say, yeah, well, too much time spent together is just suffocating. You need time apart to grow in a relationship. Otherwise, if you're always on top of each other, it becomes too much. So they've now moved the goalposts. In one instance, they were saying we need to spend more time together, but now because they don't want to spend the weekend with you, they're going to move the goalposts, move the standards, adjust it to what they want, and they're going to say, you know what, actually spending that much time together is too much, and they're going to make you look and feel bad because you actually asked to spend more time with them. So this is definitely a manipulation technique that we see happen often, where a person is constantly changing the relationship and moving the goalposts around and the standards that they have in a relationship with you, just so it suits them, even if they don't actually fulfill that standard themselves. And this often leaves the other person who's being manipulated feeling like they are never good enough, that they're never doing enough, that they can never please the other person, and it leaves you feeling rejected, upset, can affect your self-esteem over time, and you're constantly feeling like you're having to jump through hoops to please this other person, and they're never fully happy with you. So instead of, when something like this happens and they're like, you know what, taking my previous example of, yeah, we shouldn't be spending that much time together because spending that much time together is too much in a relationship, I would just say, you know what, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And I would go and do my own thing. And if they then started to turn around and say we need to spend more time together, I would ignore exactly and completely what they've said, and I would carry on doing what I felt comfortable doing. And I would actually not want to be in a relationship with somebody like this, not in a friendship, not in any kind of a relationship where I felt like they were constantly moving situations or manipulating situations to benefit them and being hypocritical, because someone like that is overall very toxic and you're never going to be able to change them. All you can really do is avoid somebody like this and avoid letting them make you feel like you are not doing enough or make you feel like you are not good enough. You decide if you are good enough, not them. Don't ever jump through hoops to please somebody like that, because it's never going to lead anywhere good, ever. Be yourself in every relationship, and if a person doesn't like it, they are free to leave. And if they're moaning and complaining about it, then it's better if you just leave. Keep them at arm's length and avoid the toxicity altogether. Keep them as an acquaintance instead of somebody that is close to you. Sign number 3 that someone is manipulating you is they are charming you or love bombing you. And I've kind of lumped this together into one category because it overlaps a lot these days. And we have this term being thrown around calling love bombing, but charm and love bombing, I mean, charm applies more to situations that are non-romantic and it can apply to anybody, whereas love bombing applies more to romantic situations, but they both very heavily overlap with each other. Now, just to kind of give you a background about this and why charm and love bombing works so well and why it's such an effective manipulation technique. Well, scientists in studies have found that our facial expressions and the way we emote ourselves can heavily influence whether somebody else finds us to be trustworthy and reliable, and whether or not they're going to then let their guard down in front of us. A study was done in a bank where they had 2 different types of people come in. One had a certain look where they had facial expressions which were not as warm and welcoming, and the other ones were more warm and welcoming. And the banks found that customers who were more warm, welcoming, and had more happy looking characteristics and facial expressions were more likely to get loans, better treatment from people than the ones who were coming in maybe with a scowl, not really smiling, giving short answers. So charm and the way that we use our facial expressions very heavily influences the way that others perceive us. And people who manipulate other people know this like the back of their hand. So even if they're having a rubbish day, when they turn up and they go to an event or they go to a meeting, they're gonna turn up and they're gonna smile and they're gonna act like every single person in the room is the most important person in the room. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it ventures over into being bad when this person then behaves this way, but their actions are showing that, you know what, you're not really that important to me. Or they come across as being trustworthy and then they break your trust. That's why it's very important to recognize who is being manipulative and who is being genuine. And it's a very thin line and very hard to do oftentimes. When someone is smiling at us a lot, and say for example you're in a room and you're at a party and you've met somebody, they're smiling at you a lot, they're looking at you a lot, they're giving you the eye contact, and maybe they've complimented you, then you're going to start assuming that, you know what, this person is interested in me, they're interested in talking to me, and they must like me. And I'm not talking about romantic like or anything like that, but I'm talking about like me enough to want to talk to me, because nobody wants to talk to somebody who looks like they're not interested in talking to them. Well, this person, in the way that they're behaving and their facial expressions and the way they're coming across, is actually showing you that they are interested in talking to you. So automatically, you are then going to be feeling disarmed. You're going to be like, oh, this person is more trustworthy than everyone else in the room maybe, or this person is a nicer, warmer, friendlier person. And I actually have a video on this where I talk more about ways that you can make yourself be more attractive to other people, and I basically break down even more about how this is done and how you can do it as well. Obviously not to break somebody's trust, but just to come across as more attractive in general. And I'm going to post that video right here so you can follow that link. So manipulators are going to use facial expressions that are going to disarm you, like being warm, friendly, smiling. They're going to be smiling, they're going to come across as a happier person, and everybody wants to be around happy people, right? Nobody likes toxic energy and gloomy, cloudy people. So they're going to disarm you this way, and they're going to add in nice words, you know, maybe a little bit of compliments here and there, or they're going to start talking about things where you feel like they match your values, or they match your hobbies, or they match your perspective. And a lot of times these people will be making up things. Maybe they don't like going surfing, but if you mention, if they ask you, so what are your hobbies, and you're like, oh, I love surfing, then oh my god, me too, I absolutely love surfing. And maybe they only ever walked on a beach once, and that was like as close as they ever got to surfing. But just to disarm you and make you trust them more, make you like them more, so you will drop your guard a bit more, they're going to act like you have more things in common. And they're going to be this way with nearly everybody, not just you. And they're going to make the other person feel comfortable around them until it comes time to, and this is the worst part, when they break that person's trust. When their actions show that, you know what, in fact, this nice persona that they've put up, actually, their actions don't match this, and they're not a very nice person. So how can you spot a manipulator like this? Well, if you've just met somebody, whether it's at a party, whether it's like romantic, non-romantic, and they act like they're head over heels for you, or they act like they're your best friend and they just met you, and they act like they really like you and they just met you, that person is manipulating you. Nobody can absolutely really like somebody as soon as they've met them. That love at first sight thing is just, it does not exist. To fall in love, to get to know somebody, to trust somebody, to really like somebody, you have to really get to know them. No matter how much you like the idea of somebody that you find attractive, really liking you, when they first meet you, that's just never going to be possible. They might like the overall impression that you give them, but they're never going to be head over heels in love with you, or they're never going to feel like you are their best friend when you just met them and known them for like 2 hours, or sometimes even less than that. So this person is definitely manipulative, and you should be very guarded and wary of somebody like this, because 9 times out of 10, their actions are not going to match their words. Now, my final sign for today's video that someone is manipulating you is, and I'm sure a lot of people know about this, but I'm going to break it down a bit further today, is passive aggressive behavior. Now, passive aggressive behavior can manifest in many different ways, but one of the main ways I'm going to talk about today is social isolation and silent treatment. And the reason is because human beings are social creatures. It's very important for us to feel included in a group, or to feel like we have somebody to talk to, or that we're not totally alone in the world. Even if we don't necessarily like to admit it, but this is definitely a fact, because we are social beings. So when somebody gives you silent treatment and they are ignoring you, they know that this is going to hurt you, and this is exactly why they are doing it. Silent treatment is always a manipulation tactic, always. And let me give you an example. So in studies done in prisons, they found that when certain prisoners were completely ignored, completely act like everybody treated them like they did not exist, that was incredibly harmful for them, and it was something that they struggled massively with. So things like solitary confinement is actually a lot harder for a prisoner or a person than being part of a group and going through prison time in a group setting. And that's just one example. So when somebody manipulates you by going silent on you, they're doing it because they want to hurt you, because they want you to figure out what you've done wrong, even if it's nothing. But they're upset about something, and they want you to magically, figure out what it is that is caused them to be upset with you, which is just not possible. And they're not giving you the answer, but they expect you to know the answer. And that's pure manipulation. Oftentimes, people who are getting the silent treatment are going to want to jump through hoops. They're going to try and figure out and apologize and try and make it up to the person who's giving them a silent treatment. Anything to make the silent treatment stop, because we don't like it. It's natural for no human being to like it, especially if they care about the other person. And the manipulator is actually going to use this technique on you because they know that you care about them, to hurt you and to bring you into a situation where they can make you feel like you are below them and you need to make it up to them, and that you need to jump through hoops to please them. Now, the second passive aggressive technique, which is very closely linked to silent treatment, and it kind of comes back to my prison example, is social exclusion. And social exclusion basically can come down to things like, and I'm sure you've all felt this before, if someone doesn't like somebody, instead of like telling them to their face that they don't like them or they've done something to hurt them, they're going to exclude them out of the group. So if there's like a group of friends and say for example the other person, they don't like that person, or maybe one of the friends doesn't like that person or something that they've done, then what they're going to do is they're going to maybe invite all of the other friends out, and they're going to not invite this person out, and then they're going to make it obvious that all of these friends went out and you were the one who was not invited. And this is a form of passive aggressive behavior because you're trying to hurt the other person, you're trying to punish the other person, but you're not actually saying why you're doing this. So this manipulation tactic works because the person who's being excluded is then going to be like, well, hold on, why am I being excluded? It's going to hurt them, it's going to upset them, it's going to make them question their behavior, and maybe they're going to be more amenable next time. Maybe they're going to act more nice next time so they don't get socially excluded, or they're going to jump through hoops so the group doesn't socially exclude them next time. And in both these instances, when it comes to silent treatment, if someone is giving you the silent treatment, mirror their behavior. Who cares? If they're going silent on you, go silent on them. Live your life, go about your day. Even if you care about them, you need to recognize that this is manipulation only, and eventually this person will have to give in and start talking to you or telling you what's wrong so you can fix the problem if there is one. And when it comes to social exclusion, if someone is excluding you from a group, you know what? Go about your life, live your life. Pretend like you don't care, even if you do. It might hurt you for a moment. Go out and find a new group of friends. Go out and do activities by yourself and make yourself happy, so you don't feel like you always need the group to make you happy. And if this is something that happens on a constant level, maybe you have a group of friends who constantly do this to you, they are not your friends. Let people like these go and change your social circle. Be confident enough to know that if you can have this group of friends who are not very good, then you can attract an even better group of friends, and you are more than capable of making new friends. Okay, everybody, that's my video for today, and thank you so much for watching the Mind Council channel. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel and watch this space.